What's up, Pod Pals? It's your buddy Adam, and you are listening to Podcasting Business School. It's the show where I teach podcasters how to love their podcast like a hobby and build it like a business. We've got a very special podcast audit session. We've got my Pod Pal Lizette here from the Dementia Caregiving for Families podcast. Lizette, welcome to Podcasting Business School. How are you doing today?
I am wonderful. I see you did not try the last name.
I usually don't. I always just make sure, Kluta.
Kluta, yeah, you did good.
See? I'm good. So yeah, that's one of my tricks. Growing up with a tough to pronounce last name, I'm like, if I can nail the first name, and then I'll put your full name and all the stuff, and we'll make it easy to connect. So, all right, let's dig in. Let's set a goal. All right, I like to set a 6-month goal. So let's imagine you and I are reconnecting 6 months from today. I've given you some wonderful words of wisdom. Things are going great with your show. They've been going great for the last 6 months. What would that look like? Paint that picture for us here today.
So I would love to increase it to consistently over 125 per month with a steady stream of qualified leads.
Okay. So really looking at growth, but also conversion. So we're looking at converting listeners into becoming our best clients, which I love. This is the just home base strategy that I have with my show, with my business. And I think it works really, really well for service providers. All right. So with that in mind, what do you feel like is the biggest obstacle to getting there right now? Are there any roadblocks naturally popping up, areas where you feel like you need to level up your expertise, anything like that happening?
So I'm a baby podcaster. My podcast launched in November last year, and I've implemented a lot of the easy to implement types of things, but I'm one of these shoot and then aim type of people. So I listened to one of your episodes where you were talking about the tips and the extension on the back and the changing the podcast description, and kind of I was at a point in the podcast where I was bringing in the wrong type of people into my ecosystem. And so my podcast had always been faith informed, but it was bringing in a lot of faith-based backgrounds that are not super easy for me to work with because of vastly different worldviews. Some are closer, some are way far apart. And as a Christian, some of the people in other religion beliefs was just like not compatible.
Yeah.
So I did a knee-jerk rebrand, flying by the seat of my pants in the middle of okay, this isn't working, to go from faith informed to more faith forward. And then a couple of weeks later heard the how to do a rebrand maybe a little better.
Okay.
So I've been changing up a lot of things. I've tried a podcast player ad now that I'm very much in trying to brand myself as a Christian podcast. So I've done that. I've increased after I did the 180. Everything just kind of tanked. It was starting to really grow, and then it just tanked, which I was expecting cognitively, but not emotionally. I'm like, oh, that hurt a little more than I thought. But the last 30 days, the downloads have gone up with the podcast player app. I've once changed the extension because it still wasn't specific enough, and I still don't think it's specific enough. And I got better with the description. I changed that up a little bit. So I'm tracking the data. I saw the numbers dip. They're starting to go back up again. The highest download I've had so far in 30 days is 103, which is better than 50. Yes. So I'm pleased with that, but that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay. Well, let's dive in to the first leg of the race here, which is attracting the right people. And then we can talk about converting those people into clients a little bit. So So right now, Dementia Caregiving for Families, is that the full name of the show, or is that what else do we have going on there?
The rest of it is tips for caregiver success during Alzheimer's, dementia caregiving, and dealing with dementia behaviors from a Christian perspective.
Okay.
That's the title extension.
What do you think about I mean, you got good keywords and stuff in there. I think Alzheimer's is really important to have in there. I like that the first word is dementia. I think that's helping you. What if you in the main title put the word Christian in there? So dementia caregiving for Christian families. I mean, is that
I had considered that was my original one, that I had considered. I didn't want to do that right this moment until I 100% committed to rebranding in the right way.
okay? That's something that I think would help from an identifier and like in the art. I've seen this happen before. I've had a client that, she was focusing on Christian women and doing like therapy and mental health work. And I was like, that needs to be in the name of the show. And that if that's really who you want to attract, let's attract them. Like
Mhm.
don't be ashamed of that. And like, don't hide from it, go and get them and let them know, because those people are looking. Otherwise you get looped into everybody else that's
Right.
coaching in your space. But the more
There
a
really
service
is
provider,
there are very, very few people doing what I do.
yeah. So let's really lean into that even
Mhm.
more. And that's the power of being independent, smaller, getting started podcasters. We can be so specific. We can create the exact right show for the exact right
Exact
people that
right
you
person.
want to help. Yeah.
So my original title would have been, before I went for the 4 families, was just gonna be Dementia Caregiving for Christians.
Yeah. I think for Christians or for Christian families, I don't that's just going to be a personal
Okay.
decision from you. But yeah, I think having that word earlier in there and on the art, I think that'll help. And I think you got good keywords spread throughout the rest of it. So that's going to be, yeah, I think that will definitely be helpful.
Yeah, I didn't
And
change my thankfully, I just left the artwork, to try to get through this process. I just kinda
yeah,
left it.
yeah,
It's easily
and
fixed.
yeah, and just make sure with the artwork, we want the words to be the star of the show. Really, very easy to read. I would probably put the word Christian in a different color that isn't anywhere else on the art. So because that's going to be the who it's for. They're going to see the word dementia because that's the first letter in the title.
Mhm,
Really make that word Christian pop. So that's the identifier. That's like, oh, anytime there's an identifying group, I like to make that stand out. So if this was dementia caregiving for 40
purple
plus
people.
females, millennials. I mean, it
Yeah,
doesn't,
yeah.
baby boomers doesn't, matter, but
Gen X.
let's highlight that so that if they're scrolling through they just search the word dementia, they see the word dementia, but they see, oh, Christians. Oop, let me put my break. That's me. I'm a Christian. I identify with that. Let's give this one an opportunity. So
Yeah,
if you hit that term that they use to describe themselves, we highlight it, draw them to it. They're much more likely to click on
mhm,
your artwork, which is obviously a big deal. We want that first click. If we can win the first click battle, then we've got a great chance that they're going to at least listen to a few episodes.
mhm,
So yeah, no, it sounds like you got that dialed in with your host description. We definitely want to make sure we have dementia, Alzheimer's, Christian, like all the words that you want to show up for. We need to pack those in there for sure. Let's add some Google style questions. So like 5 to 10 questions that you think you would want to show up for in Google. That'll help with that. And then also just look at your episode titles and think about, like, with each one, do we have the word dementia in there? Do we have Alzheimer's
mhm.
in there? Do we have Christian in there? We want at least probably one of those words in
Right.
there in each
Yeah.
title. So that's, I always kind of, when I create my episodes, I always create a few bullet notes with my solos and stuff like that. And I'm just like, what's it about? I kind of slap a title on there, whatever. And then I create it and I'm like, okay, this is what it's about, but what's like the best keyword? And I don't use AI for whatever reason, just because I like to really put myself in my listeners' shoes and go, what are they looking for in this? And what if they're searching Google, if they're searching Apple, they're scrolling through, like, what do they really want to see there? So that's, I kind of add a few keywords in there, and usually has some podcasting tips for blah, blah, blah,
Mhm.
so that's kind of where I go from there. So I feel like you're in a good spot. I think this is kind of a 1 to 3 degree tiny micro pivot,
Mhm.
and give it some time to marinate with that. With that title extension, the nice thing about that is you can change that. I'd let it run for 90 days, but you can change that and no one's going to notice. And you don't have to do a rebrand or anything.
Mhm.
No one's going to notice. I change mine fairly often. Nobody's been like, wait a second, there are different words, because I don't even remember it
Oh, yeah, I had
well
to
enough.
I pulled it up so I
Yeah.
could read it.
Yeah. Like, I announced the show, I introduced it as Podcasting Business School, not Podcasting Business School, online business building tips for podcasting entrepreneurs. Like, it's something like that. But yeah, so I think you're on a really nice start with implementing a lot of my core strategies that increase that organic discoverability. So I think we're good there. I'm interested in your offers, and I'm interested in expert positioning on your show. So are we doing solo episodes? What type of episodes? What type of content are you putting out? Interviews, solos, any coaching episodes? What does that look like?
When I started, I was only doing 2 episodes a week. I'm now doing 3 episodes a week.
Wow.
And it's only because I have a VA that does all the tech stuff. I can talk all day, every day with no problem. It's just I'm wired that way, so that's not an issue at all. When I started out, I had 1 interview and then 1 me. And I didn't really love the interviews per
Okay.
se. I've had a lot of good feedback from people, but I also recognized very early on that not all interviews are created equal. And so, in listening to your program, I am I have a terrible sense of humor, terrible. And so I have a new segment that I'm doing the equivalent of your Pod Pals
Okay.
party, where it's called Ask the Dementor, which is a play on words from dementia and mentor.
I
I
like
told
it.
you I have a terrible sense of humor. I'm calling it a monthly meetup,
Okay.
just like a monthly meetup. The first one I just ran as a dry run to see what would actually happen. So I've done 2. The other episode, the first one that went live yesterday. So I haven't actually looked at it or gotten any feedback. Opportunity for improvement. I need to be more clear that people can't be walking around, they've got to be sitting, and, so just some housekeeping stuff that'll make
Yeah.
it better over time. And then I'm starting to do that one once a month, and then I'm going to do a coaching style episode. I did my first, I did record it yesterday. It'll go out on the 17th of June. And then the rest are going to be 2 just interviews and then 2 solos a week.
Okay. This is great. So I think you got my 2/3 content rule pegged down. So that looks good. With your offers, like, tell me exactly who you're serving and how you're serving them with your offers a little bit.
So I'm a very good nerd. I've done the podcast monetization pyramid, and I am in the process of kind of revamping my offers, mostly because it's a longer story. I was very blessed to receive a grant from the South Carolina not Alzheimer's area agency on aging to actually start a program. It was a blessing and a curse because it gave me a little bit of a runway, but the curse was that I was then tied into the prescriptive part of the grant in order to what's the word I'm looking for? meet the requirements of the grant to get the
Okay.
grant money. So I couldn't really, when I saw it wasn't working super well, I couldn't really stop and do something different. So the grant cycle ends at the end of this month. And I decided I'm not going to pursue the remainder of the money in the grant because I need the flexibility to be able to change things. So I have
Okay.
a low ticket group program that I'm actually going to change into a higher ticket group
Yeah.
program
Yeah.
because it's just the amount of time I'm spending is just not um, sustainable. And and then one-on-one concierge level type of coaching.
Okay.
What I help people do is dementia is an ever rolling stream. It's constantly changing. And people really do struggle in three ways primarily when they're helping somebody living with dementia. Number one, they have to learn how to communicate with this person in an entirely different way. And so I teach them those skills. The second part of it is about 30% of caregivers actually die before the person that they're taking care of.
Wow.
So they don't take care of themselves. So teaching people to actually take care of themselves and what that looks like for each person. And then the third part of it is um, beginning with the end in mind, knowing what your options are related to everything with dementia caregiving. And then a smaller package is, Houston, mom's in the hospital. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Kind of help them through the crisis. So those are the four mini offers, the ones that I'm now starting to do based on your recommendations of having a start now type of
Yeah.
offer.
Yeah.
And the group coaching and the one-on-one is also a start now type. I'm still very much in the infancy of my business, so
Yeah.
it's mostly all start now and then moving towards more recurring revenue over time.
Yeah. I think it makes sense. I think you've got it dialed in pretty nicely, Lizette. So just wanted to compliment you on that. Like that. I mean, the offers are making sense. So I think one of the key points to focus on will be that coaching style episode and the topic and the way that you attack that episode. I really want that to be the appetizer to your start anytime coaching offer, that you're elevating the price on, because you have these lanes. They're very clear and definable. You've got, the kind of getting started advice of somebody just, okay, we've just discovered that this is our diagnosis. You've got the, I need to take care of my own health lane. So you have all these different lanes. I think with that coaching style episode, you could focus, or there's different approaches. You could kind of let the person that signs up choose their own adventure. And with the onboarding, you're like, hey, there are different things that we could focus on. Out of this list, check the two that are most priority to you. So maybe it's their own health, or we're just learning about this, or the person I'm taking care of, their health is getting really bad really fast, or whatever. Like you know all the lanes, not me. So you could let them choose their own adventure and kind of focus on one, maybe two of those things. So for me, it's kind of like, are we talking business? Are we talking about getting clients? Are we talking about podcast growth? Are we talking about
Mhm,
SEO? We can't talk about it all. So we only got 25, 30 minutes. What can we go a little bit deeper on instead of going shallow and wide?
mhm,
So that's kind of the choose your own adventure. That's the way that I do it. But I've often thought, I have clients that do this, and this other alternate route may work a little bit better, is you kind of set the tone for your coaching style episode and go, hey, for the first quarter of the year, all my coaching episodes are going to be focused on you taking care of your own health, or the, we just got that diagnosis game plan, or things are going downhill fast game plan, or whatever.
mhm,
Focus on one of the lanes and kind of brand it as that. So for me, I could say, all right, fourth quarter of 2024, the podcast audits, we're going to dial in on getting clients and client acquisition, or download growth, or
mhm,
whatever. rebranding. So I could pick any of those lanes and market it as that. I've had a lot of clients that when they do that, they tend to have higher conversion rates earlier on, just because you're very specific. They know exactly what they're signing up for. You know exactly what they're signing up for. You're going in and delivering on that. They get that appetizer and they're hungry for more. They're like, wow, this was so helpful. I know there's a bigger, this is one piece of the pie. I need the whole pie, Lizette. Can you sell me the pie? And so that's a decision. I don't think there's a wrong way to attack it. Maybe you start off with the choose your own adventure and just kind of see if people are naturally gravitating towards one of those options. But I do think it's important with where you're at. You got to keep this type of an episode under 30 minutes, because if you go over 30, they should be paying for that, in my opinion. So I think in that 20 to 30 range, let's give them the appetizer. If we're lining up all the dominoes, we're going to kick over the first one or two there and get some momentum going. But if it does seem like a good fit, and I like the strategy for you because this is an emotional and intense thing that they're going through, and you're allowing them to kind of taste test it for free and get to know you a little bit as the potential coach, mentor, guide, and you're getting to show off what you do, and that's all recorded and put out there on air. So I think it'll be successful. So any initial thoughts of those two strategies? What seems like it might be the best fit for you?
So initially, I'm just going to use some of my current clients to just at least get started. But what almost immediately struck me is the not the choose your own adventure, but to do almost a sequence of topics, because that's a lot of what people are struggling with. Is they think it's dementia that's the problem. It's not dementia per se, it's the constant change. And so they're constantly a step behind.
Yeah.
And by clarifying and doing like a topic at a time, I can really work on catching people at different parts of the journey, so people over time can see the whole journey.
Yeah. Now, I'll throw one kind of layer 2 idea at you, and this is going to be maybe a not for now, but down the road, because I feel like I would be not serving you to my full capacity if I didn't mention this, but I don't want it to overwhelm you. But down the road, if you do choose this topical, like we're going to talk about certain things for a certain amount of time. So for example, if I have something to sell with podcast rebranding, like some course, I could say, hey, for the month of June, all my podcast audits are going to be about rebranding, and I'm going to record all those. But when they're airing, that's when I'm also mentioning my new rebranding course. So I kind of marry that. So if you were to have some, like for you, I could see like a mid to lowish ticket entry offer that's a paid 7-day challenge for health, taking care of yourself while dealing with your spouse's dementia or whatever. So let's say that's a $300 7-day challenge or something like that. Well, you could pre-record some coaching style episodes of you coaching people on their health. And as you're selling that call to action later on, that's when you're releasing those episodes and kind of marrying that topic with your paid challenge call to action. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And that's really not that hard to do, in the sense that I have somebody that helps me with the distribution side of it. And it's just, thinking through it ahead of time and putting the pieces together. So I like that. That's a good suggestion.
Cool. And I think you're doing a lot of the stuff that I talk about on the show, and I applaud you for that. One, I guess, final tip would be, if you're going to spend time doing like what I do, like with the Pod Pals episodes or the coaching episodes, I would prioritize the coaching episodes first and still do your group community episode once a month or whatever. But I think the coaching ones will show you off a little bit more effectively, and they'll convert over into becoming clients a little more effectively, because it is that one-to-one, like they really get to feel what it's like to work with Lizette and you feel heard and worked with. So I would prioritize that a little bit, but still, if you have time for it and you've got your VA cooking and everything's working smoothly, then add those group ones in there as well. Cool.
Yeah, well, and if it doesn't work, if I just get too much, then I can always just do the party, for lack
Yep.
of a better word, the meetup once a quarter.
Yeah. Yep. You're exactly right. Cool. All right. So I think, like I said, you're very, very close. I feel like this isn't a huge overhaul at all. It's a few little minor tweaks on the organic discoverability and the attraction side of things, and then the conversion. I think the coaching episodes are just going to be dynamite. I think that's really, really going to help. And then from there, it's just releasing content. The system starts to work. The flywheel starts to turn. Listenership goes up. Higher percentage of those people convert over into being awesome clients for you. And I got to tell you, Lizette, like there's nothing better as far as working with somebody that's like, I've listened to 20 or 50 episodes or hundreds of episodes, and they just know all your stuff. And then it's like hitting the ground running. It's just so frictionless. And you're like, all right, I don't have to sell them on any of my ideas. They just need help implementing. And it's awesome. So I think you're setting yourself up for that experience. All right. Now,
Awesome.
I want to make sure that you get to shout out your brand, your website, all that stuff. So go ahead and take the mic and go for it.
All right. So my podcast is Dementia Caregiving for Families. Probably will change to Dementia Caregiving for Christian Families. And my website is thinkdifferentdementia.com, because I want people to think different about the whole dementia care process.
Very intriguing. All right, Lizette, I appreciate you joining me. And for all you out there, if you want to join me for a podcast audit, jump on the website, www.podcastingbusiness.school. Get signed up, hop on the podcast audit calendar, and you too can be on the show just like Lizette. With that, Pod Pals, I appreciate you. I'm going to send you out into the world wishing you health, happiness, and many downloads. I will see you next time.